Well, many of you as home gardeners are used to growing spinach and different cole crops this time of year, but I think many of us are surprised to find out that these same crops are grown on a commercial basis here in Oklahoma. And today on Oklahoma Gardening we have with us Mr. Stan Sheffield, and Stan is one of these farmers over in the eastern part of the state who is growing some of these crops. And today, Stan, we're in, what field are we in today? What are we standing in?
These are collard greens.
Collard greens. So I understand we've got about between, 500 acres of just types of greens?
400 and 500 acres of collard greens, mustard greens, turnip greens, sometimes some kale some years.
Okay, and we've got spinach grown in this part too. And where we're at is actually in the eastern part of the state along the Arkansas River, and some real good soil, and you've got two growing seasons, the fall and the spring.
Right.
What's grown in each season?
Well, the collard greens like you see here are mostly grown in the fall because they'll take the colder weather better. Occasionally we'll grow some collard greens in the spring, but mostly in the fall. The mustard greens and turnip greens, they can be grown either spring or fall.
Okay, so two different seasons. And this is probably one of the common ways that the greens are planted, but you were telling me about another way that they're in a raised bed situation.
Yes, these are planted flat because of the center pivot irrigation you see behind us, and so there's no reason to plant these up on beds. In some cases we bed our ground up, flatten it out, and plant 2 rows on top of each bed so that we can run water down the furrows.
Okay.
That's called flood irrigation,
right?
Furrow irrigation.
What time of year were these planted then for the fall? Back just a few weeks ago, or?
Probably these were planted about the 1st of September.
Okay, and then they'll be harvested in?
Probably in the next week to 10 days they'll start.
Okay, and we've already got some things over to our right that's already been harvested, and those were
turnip greens. They were turnip greens.
Okay, and now the turnip greens, they can actually get a second harvest out of them.
If everything goes right, if they don't cut them too low, and they put fertilizer down and they run the sprinkler system across, and they don't get disease, and everything goes right, they will come back. And
that would be the same with mustard greens as well, I guess.
Yes, we occasionally get to cut those twice, and on rare occasions 3 times.
All right, so we've talked about the irrigation and that kind of thing. Once they're harvested, first of all, how are they harvested?
Well, we use a Porterway greens harvester, and it's a simple machine, and it just has a sickle that we raise and lower, and the sickle cuts the greens off, and a series of conveyor belts convey it up into a buggy or a semi-trailer.
Okay, and you mentioned the collard greens, you only get 1 cutting, and I think the homeowners can relate to this with the mustard greens, turnip greens, and spinach. They can go in and cut it, kind of give it a haircut just like you've done here, and it will come back and they get multiple harvests. But when they harvest their collard greens, they usually will pick 1 outer leaf at a time, and if they should cut it all at once, that would be the end of their harvest for that. So that's very similar, even though it's on a commercial basis. Well, once they're harvested, what happens to them then?
Well, they leave here in semi-trailers, and they go to most of the greens in this area go to Allen Canning Company, and they have about 8 different places that they process their greens in eastern Oklahoma and western Arkansas. There's also Bush Canning Company in Muskogee, and also Stillwell Frozen Foods in Stillwell, and they are a frozen processor. They freeze their product, and the other 2 can theirs.
So as consumers then, we're able to go to the grocery store and buy Oklahoma grown greens and cole crops, but they probably send their products other places as well.
They send them all over the United States and in some foreign countries.
Right. So as you can see, even though we grow some of these things as home gardeners, it's a big commercial industry in the eastern part of the state as well. And Stan, we want to thank you for taking the time to show us around. And I think it'll be interesting next time you sit down and you have canned or frozen greens, if you don't get them from your own garden, you might check and see if those were grown here in Oklahoma.
We hope you enjoyed this video. It's part of our OK Gardening Classics YouTube channel. You can also find more recent videos on our Oklahoma Gardening YouTube channel. And join us on social media for great gardening tips, photos, and discussion.